Hi, Glenn.
You regret getting on this show every time you're like, oh, geez, not this guy.
So far, so good, buddy.
Okay. So first of all, okay, well, I don't know if you're willing to share this. I don't know if you can as a journalist. I'm lucky I don't have that chain around my neck. Do these things feel uncomfortable to you? Does everything just fit in a nice little box in the news today, or is something not feel?
I don't really see any particular connection among the issues that you laid out, but they do make an interesting combination to talk about.
Okay, tell me about the Arlen Specter thing. Here he comes. He's selling out just because he can get reelected because he's losing in the polls for a primary, right?
Well, he made no bones about the fact that he couldn't win the Republican primary, and so he's switching parties because he couldn't win it as an independent either. So the only way he could remain in the Senate at age 79, going on 80 or whatever it is, was to become a Democrat, where he has been, as you might expect, welcomed with open arms today. So this was not about being. I mean, Arlen Specter has never been so much a liberal or so much a conservative as he has been a survivor.
Yeah.
And he survived a lot of things, a lot of political tests, a lot of close races. He survived cancer, I think, more than once. He had Hodgkin's disease. Remember that for a time he was going around, he didn't have any hair, he was wearing a ball cap. He survived all that, and here he is, head up and banners flying, and now a member of the Democratic Party surviving once again.
Sometimes, don't you think that it's okay to not survive if you can walk out with your shoulders square and say, I stand for something? I mean, he said this. He said he doesn't want his future decided by, quote, that jury in Pennsylvania, meaning the Republicans that voted for him. These people, a lot of them, I think Arlen Specter is one of them, they have contempt for the American people that they're supposed to represent.
Well, look, what he's talking about is a subset of the Pennsylvania electorate. He believes he'd win a general election easily if he could get nominated. He believes his own party won't nominate him. Now, I'm not saying that this is the noblest thing I've ever seen. It's just simply hardball politics. But I think the Republican Party would do well to think about whether it needs to be a bit more solicitous of members of the party who are in states that are essentially Democratic states, where re-election is difficult. And what continues to happen is that some of them are under primary challenges. The primary challenger, more conservative than the incumbent, wins and then loses the general election, and it's +1 for the other side. You may think that's a good outcome, and you may think it's an honorable outcome, but I would submit to you that the Democrats, if you don't like what they're doing, have more votes because of it.
Okay. You know what? No, it has nothing to do with what the Democrats have been doing. It is what the Republicans have been doing. You know, everybody thinks, oh, you know, the Republicans, they need to move more to the center, more to the left. We had a progressive candidate as a Republican. I mean, America had two progressives to look at. We were like, okay, which one of these? It's the same choice. It was just progressive and progressive light. I don't understand why we would want to offer up as a choice to the American people, why we would say, you know what we really need? We need more of the same choice instead of having a real stark difference between the two.
Well, that's a choice is a nice thing. And it's fine to be the candidate who offers a real choice, but it's also nice to be the candidate who has some chance of winning. The Republican Party, at the end of the day, is not better off with a Democrat in that seat, be he Arlen Specter or somebody else. And Arlen Specter believed he couldn't even get nominated, and he believes, perhaps correctly, that the person who would take the nomination from him, Pat Toomey, a very attractive, quite conservative, able candidate, couldn't possibly win. Well, he may get the nomination now, and we'll see.
Okay. Britt, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know,
my pleasure, Glenn. Thank you.
I mean, Britt is much smarter. That way you should listen to him, not to me. But let me tell you something. I lived in Pennsylvania for a while. I wouldn't vote for Arlen Specter. I voted for I don't even know who I voted. It might have been Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. I don't remember who I voted for, but it wasn't Arlen Specter. And everybody said, you just threw your vote away. Really, those of you who are conservative and voted for Arlen Specter, gee, who threw their vote away? Me or you? Now, let me go back to the story that, the one that everybody's forgetting about, and that once Specter, broke some political news today. Swine flu. It is spreading and not stopping. There are now more than 60 confirmed cases here in the U.S. Carnival Cruise Line says it has canceled 3 Mexico stops for its cruise ships due to the swine flu. What impact, and this is what nobody is hitting, what impact will this have on the already battered Mexican economy as well as ours right here in the U.S.? With me now is Columbia University professor David Buckner. David, nobody is looking at, they're thinking of this as just, is it going to be a pandemic? Are we all going to die? This has a real chance of changing the economy like that in Mexico and here.
They're looking at it from a viral perspective, from what needs to be done in terms of a pandemic and how many people would get sick. It would have significant impact. You recognize that Mexico is quite fragile. $13 billion in tourism dollars go into Mexico, I believe the number. And when Carnival starts pulling out, others start pulling out, with an already fragile economy, and this is an economy that's the 3rd top exchanging or importing-exporting economy with the United States, that's going to have a domino effect.
Right.
It's not just about sickness, albeit that's important. It's also about the domino that it creates, even in perception. If people aren't getting sick, but they believe that that it's occurring, that it's going to be a pandemic, you're hearing people already trying to move away from Mexico, both in terms of trade, both in terms of going there and tourism and other such things.
Let's flip it the other direction.
Right.
What does it do to our economy? Not just because don't we own a lot of Mexican debt?
We do.
Okay.
We hold a lot of debt, and if Mexico can't make the revenue, they can't service the debt, they can't just pay the interest on the debt, that's a problem. They get that from the revenue that comes both from tourism, from oil, from all of their major industries.
Okay, so let's look at it from the other side of the coin. That have you noticed that people are dying there, but they're not dying here?
We do appear to have a less severe strain.
Or we have better health care here.
We're getting it earlier.
If you are a mom and dad in Mexico, and you know that people around you are dying, but they're not dying in the United States, David, wouldn't you get in the car and come to the United States and try to get the free health care here?
I would move away from the city center. And whether it's the United States or another direction, it depends on where you are. If I'm north of Mexico City, I'd probably move toward the north, try to get further and further away. Yeah, I'd go to where it's safe. I'd go to the medical health care, because I know in the U.S. it's free if I walk in.
So what does that do to us? The extra burden on... Look, I don't mean to make this about numbers, but we are in... I've been describing this for several years. A perfect storm. I said back in September, there is a perfect storm that has come on shore. I've been talking about it for years, and it just came on shore. This is part of it. It is, while it's not connected, it is all connected on how much can we weather as a nation, as an economy, as a planet, the way we've set it up.
With this, you have two fronts. One, how much can we weather? We already have economic challenges, and so now you throw in a health challenge. By the way, and you made an interesting point at the very beginning I thought was quite compelling, and that is that we have so many challenges now. The first thing that people generally do is run to a higher, the government, a higher authority to care for me. It's a natural instinct. I'm not faulting it, but there is no residual government oversight when you have all of these storms coming together. We have economic, we have health. That's the first issue. The second issue is you do now have, with regard to Mexico, people coming over the border. We have health care that's free on this side of the border, free to them. Okay, they walk into a hospital, they need it, and what happens? We run the risk of passing that along. We run the risk of now them staying here. We run the risk of the domino.
Okay, David, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Okay, some of Obama's picks suggest a hidden health care agenda that, again, nobody's talking about because there's so many balls in the air. We're going to, what is that agenda? Next.
Glenn Beck is brought to you by the